When you log into ChatGPT, the first thing you see is a question. What can I help with? And indeed, it's a good question. ChatGPT is used for quite a number of things, and I'd like to discuss some of them, which I do with ChatGPT, and that really help me as a developer on the one hand, and as an HPC user on the other hand. So this will be a little introduction of how I use ChatGPT in order to find information which helps me professionally. A term that will crop up time and again when discussing large language models such as ChatGPT is context. Context is really important because it will improve the quality of the answers you get from a chatbot. And so that's also why, next to my professional account, which you're seeing here, I also have a private account. So in my private account, I ask questions about music, about history, about travel, and so on. And since ChatGPT in fact remembers your previous questions and learns things about you, this would actually influence the answers I'd get about to questions about professional issues. So that's why I have two separate accounts. This one for private purposes, the other for professional purposes. And here, for example, I was asking about music. I was interested in the range of the human voice, and specifically about the contratenor. So I asked what the typical range of human voices is, and basically I got an interesting list of voice types and their specific ranges. But as I already mentioned, actually I wanted to know about the contratenor. So that's one important thing with chatbots. If you don't get the answer you're looking for, simply keep on asking questions and give more relevant details. And then basically, when I asked specifically about the contratenor, I actually got the answer I was looking for. However, asking about music and travel and whatever is nice, but again, ChatGPT learns from your queries, it learns about you, so it would again influence the results which I get professionally, and that's something that I prefer not to happen. There is another difference. The account I use for private purposes is a free account. That's the free plan which OpenAI offers, while my professional account is in fact a paid account. So basically I've subscribed to one of their professional plans. And that opens up a number of additional possibilities. First and foremost, you get access to more powerful models. So that's of course very relevant when you're using this professionally. And also there are another couple of features which I will mention later on as well. So of course that means that whatever you see here is not for free and it's a paid service. So that is something that you have to keep in mind. There is a budget required to use this. One of the ways to provide context to ChatGPT is by configuring it. So you can customize it to quite some degree, and one of the things you can do is have custom instructions. So basically that is a summary of what you would like ChatGPT to know about you in order to fine-tune its responses. So I give a description about what I do professionally, what my education is, etc., etc. So this is information that can be shared with plugins for ChatGPT. It can also be used in order to improve the performance of the models. So bear in mind that everything you share with ChatGPT in this dialogue may actually be used by it in order to retrain models and may fall into the hands of people who create plugins. So be a bit careful here. Also, when you do this the first time, this configuration, ChatGPT will actually tell you that this is the case, and you agree to that, or you can opt out, so that this information cannot be reused for any purpose at all, except for improving your queries. Another way in which you can customize ChatGPT is by specifying how you would like it to respond. So basically you could mention that you prefer brief answers, or on the contrary, that you prefer more examples, that you prefer lengthy response, a reasoned response. Typically I leave this blank because I prefer to give that information for each and every specific query. So for me, and this is not particularly useful. However, it's a good default setting if you want that. And then there is the capabilities which ChatGPT will enable. Basically, whatever you like, you can check here. So we can of course ask ChatGPT questions. For instance, suppose that I'm writing a Python application and I'd like to handle command line arguments. And there are quite a number of libraries to do that, but I would like to know which features are supported by which library, and overall which would be the best recommendation. So I can ask ChatGPT. ChatGPT starts to generate an answer, starting with argparse, usual suspect. It indeed lists pro and cons and gives some recommendation what it would be best for. Then it continues with click and so on. I'm very curious what at the end of the day its final recommendation will be. There are quite a number of these libraries which in fact I've never heard of, so I'm learning something here. Okay, so basically the overall recommendation is argparse for normal projects, let's put it that way, and better development and so on, you'd go for Click or Typer, and for large-scale CLI project, Cliff would be the best. Now typically I'm not doing large-scale CLI projects, I just need to parse some command line arguments, so that probably would make Cliff less interesting for me. Now I do know argparse and Click, but I've no idea about Typer. So I'm going to ask ChatGPT for an example of Typer. And I get a code fragment. Takes a while to generate. And here's an example. So basically it is based on annotations, function annotations, decoration, and then it shows me that I can actually ask for help and that I can provide various commands to the application. Now this is not exactly what I had in mind, because this is really for a CLI application rather than handling command arguments per se. So I'd have to refine my query a little bit, because apparently ChatGPT has given me some advice which is useful, but which is not exactly what I'm looking for. And here's another example, which indeed is likely more what I want. And it proceeds with some argumentation of why I would potentially want to use typer for that. But let's verify that this is indeed what I was looking for. So, not quite, because frankly I prefer named arguments, named command line arguments. And indeed, it seems to be the case that typer actually can handle this as well. Although I'm not yet convinced that I would be using the typer library, it illustrates nicely how ChatGPT actually allows you to do rather sophisticated queries, in the sense that you get an answer which actually doesn't answer your question, well, the question you would want it to be answered, and you can refine your question, go into a conversation with ChatGPT in order to improve the answer and to tailor it to your personal needs. Now, one of the things I would recommend is to verify the answer. So basically, if I were, say, convinced that I wanted to start using typer, I'd now proceed to the documentation and check its feature list more thoroughly, but to get a first impression, and this is really a nice way to go. To illustrate the importance of checking your results, I was recently looking into Nextflow. That is a workflow system that's primarily used in bioinformatics, but you can use it for any type of workload. So I was a little bit annoyed by the Nextflow syntax, in the sense that you define processes, and one of the things that you typically need to do, let's see whether it's here, is actually to replicate the name of the output file, in the sense that you specify it as the output path, and then you have to repeat it in the script part. And that is a little bit annoying to me, since this is error prone. So I was looking for an elegant way of solving this by perhaps using variables or whatever. And as you can see, this was quite a conversation with ChatGPT. And one of the things it came up with was a solution I really liked, and that would be this one here. So basically, I define a variable output file, assign the actual file name to it, and then reuse that variable in the script part of the Nextflow process. Okay, I was very happy with this result, and I tried it out, and it pretty horribly failed, because this is not valid syntax in a Nextflow definition. So basically, that was nice, but unfortunately also incorrect. So I went back to ChatGPT and mentioned, well, okay, your suggestion is nice, but it doesn't work. And then you get the usual ChatGPT response that you're absolutely correct, etc., etc. And it then gives some correct approaches. And in this particular case, again, it was the previous answer which I didn't like, but then this one is actually not too bad, because you simply define a variable in order to deal with that, and that is an acceptable solution, and that's the one which I, at the end of the day, went for. This is a nice example of a hallucination, because in its training set, ChatGPT will have not that many examples for Nextflow, while on the other hand, for subjects such as programming Python, there will be lots and lots of examples, because there is much more of that type of code out there. So that's always something to be aware of when you are querying on subjects that are, let's say, less mainstream. the risk of getting an answer that is actually an hallucination is quite a bit higher. When you want to chat about a new subject, it's always good practice to start a new chat so that your context is actually fresh and that you can, without any influence of let's say the queries you did before your previous conversation, start over asking questions. So another feature which is nice in ChatGPT is that you can actually group queries into projects. And that's of course a way to organize your work. In this particular case, I have a project on Nextflow, and I also have another project on Python type hints. So it's a nice way of grouping things. The last thing I want to show is AI-powered web search. So I have the following query, and I switch on search the web to do my query. This will give me two things. First, the information being used is going to be relevant, timely, but also I will get attribution. So basically I will get a list of the websites that ChatGPT used in order to retrieve the answer. So this would be the actual response to my query, essentially using rsync with the --delete option in order to keep both directories in sync in the case that the local directory contains less files than the remote directory. So basically that seems to be quite a good answer. It also goes into details about setting up and even a cron job in order to automate this process. So that's quite interesting. However, I also get the sources. Sorry about that, this is in Dutch for whatever reason, but basically that allows me to check the actual web pages on which ChatGPT found the information which is relevant in order to structure this information. So this gives you more control, a way to check the results ChatGPT comes up with.